let's discuss the current state of play with coalitions. I'm joined by elections analyst Wayne Sussman. Thank you so much for your time, Wayne. I haven't seen or spoken to you in some time. But perhaps let's start off with what's currently at play in Gauteng. We'll speak about the Speaker of Council, Vasco da Gama, being ousted. But let's perhaps start with David Makhura. Many were saying that this was inevitable because the ANC has elected new leadership in the province. But when you look at this as a voter, you wonder, how is this going to really impact service delivery on the ground, and how is it going to impact me as a voter?
Correct. So it's going to be very interesting what happens in the coming days. We know that Premier Makhura is off to Germany for a 2-week trip. And I think the ANC in Gauteng has to play its cards very closely here and very carefully here, because they know that the elections in 2024 is around the corner. I expected David Makhura to leave the stage before 2024 to allow someone, I would suggest Panyaza Lesufi, who is the provincial leader, to take over, for him to establish himself the premier. Because we know, we just have to remember the 2021 results. The ANC got 36% in Gauteng. In 2019, they got just over 50% of the vote in Gauteng. So it's going to be the most contested election ever in Gauteng, and that's why the meetings and the deliberation of the Gauteng ANC PEC today was critical, because yes, David Makhura will go before 2024, but should he be going in August 2022?
Certainly. I want us to speak about how we are seeing the dynamics come together with the ANC and the EFF. They came together to vote out the Speaker of Council, Vasco da Gama, and yesterday we had the chair of Greater Joburg, Tata Morero, who's with the ANC, in studio explaining this, and they just felt as though he was not the right person. But this speaks to a broader conversation about coalitions, and it just seems as though, as much as they said we'll all work together to provide the services to the people, that's not really happening, is it?
Correct, and this has a lot to do with service delivery. So we saw in the removal of Vasco da Gama, I have no problem with political parties working together and saying that this speaker or this mayor is not doing their job. But we also have to look at party discipline. It's clear that a party like the African Christian Democratic Party, some of their councillors disobeyed party instructions and voted with the ANC and the EFF. So that party discipline is absolutely key, because if voters at home are seeing that council is a mockery, that council is all about putting your own agendas before the agendas of the public, South African voters are going to continue to be less enamored and less excited to show up at the polls. At the same time, South African political parties need to have the maturity to show voters in the cities or municipalities they govern that coalitions can work. And this is very tough stuff. As I said, when we went into the local government elections last year, those South Africans who had experienced coalitions had not had the best of time under them, and many more South Africans are now experiencing coalitions, and we're seeing a lot of chopping and changing where the focus should be on service delivery.
I want us to speak about what we are seeing with, for example, COPE. And many are saying that COPE is not coping with the dynamics within there and the politics at play within that party. But when you look at this as a voter, you think to yourself, if that is happening at a press conference, and if they are squabbling with each other behind closed doors, and that comes to the public light, how do you trust a political party like that to provide you with those services? And I keep saying services because service delivery is a disaster in this country. Almost nothing works. We don't have streetlights working. Our potholes are a disaster. It's just, there's a lot that's not working at this stage. What did you think when you saw what was happening with COPE?
Well, COPE is back in the news. They haven't been in the news for some time. But I think you raise a very important question. With respect, Monsieur Lekota has been a great South African. He played a critical role in the UDF. He played a critical role in ending apartheid and in the new South Africa. However, as leader of COPE in 2019 and in 2021, his party had very poor results. And I believe he should have taken stock of his career, stock of his leadership, and said, it's time to hand the baton over to someone else. And what happened this week is very, very sad. People are fighting over scraps. And I think that means that COPE's continued downfall will be hastened after what we saw this week.
I want us to speak about especially Gauteng, what we saw with the ANC and the EFF coming together to vote out DA as Speaker of Council Vasco da Gama. Do you think we're going to be seeing a lot of shifting and changing with coalitions, political parties not being happy with each other and the ANC perhaps wanting its mayor, whereas the EFF might want its speaker? Many were saying this was predictable, it was expected, it was going to be very difficult for these political parties to work together. But what do you foresee happening in the next, let's say, 6 months?
In Gauteng, you have the rise of Action SA, you have Gayton Mackenzie's Patriotic Alliance doing well in the southern parts of Johannesburg. But at the end of the day, I just said a few minutes ago the ANC got 36% of the vote. I see it very unlikely that either the ANC or the opposition parties, which include the DA and Action SA, will be able to form a coalition in Gauteng without the EFF. The EFF, the Red Berets, will, in my opinion, are likely to be the kingmakers. So the opposition parties either need to work out how to work with them, and by the way, the ANC will need to work out how to work with them. The challenge for the EFF is, if they are seen to be propping up the ANC, which is declining at the moment in Gauteng, how will their voters react to that? So there's a lot at stake here, and it's going to be absolutely fascinating. We're going to see coalitions of uncommon objectives. You're going to see strange machinations happening on the road to 2024. And what happened this week in the Gauteng Council, what happened with the destruction of Cope Live on eNCA, is a shadow of things to come.
Yeah, let's just hope it's a lot calmer, because we don't want chairs flying around again. Just very quickly, I have the chance to ask you one last question. I want to ask about what you think the fate of DA Mayor Mpho is going to be, because yesterday when we had the ANC on, they said they're still in talks. There's no candidate at this stage with regards to the ANC having a candidate for mayor in the city of Johannesburg, but there are talks that they are trying to get Mpho out.
Correct. So let's just, Nelson Mandela Bay between 2016 and 2021, there was one councillor called Marlon Daniels from the Patriotic Alliance. He was the one-person mayoral wrecking ball because his vote shifted and he sunk many mayors. Now, that could happen. It's very hard to predict. Will the ACDP have discipline? Well, there was another smaller party where their councillor disobeyed party instructions. Are we going to see the ANC formalize coalitions with some of those parties which are currently supporting Mpho? It's too close to call, and her future leadership of the city is on a knife edge, and it's very hard to predict what will happen in the coming days.
I thought you had your magic ball, Wayne, but next time, please don't forget to bring it.
I'll bring it.
Great. Thank you so much for your time. We do appreciate it. That was elections analyst Wayne Sussman, and I think a lot is going to happen in the next couple of months when it comes to coalitions. So buckle up, South Africans. I think it's going to be very interesting times.